is a part 2 of 3 of these the comic book reviews. Now, I would like to get them all in one. I'd like to be nice to go back to the, well, I didn't go back to the days, but it'd be nice if, no, if I could plan it on like a weekend or a day I had off from, just coincidentally had off from work, but doesn't happen often. Does not happen often, and definitely does not happen often enough for me to plan for it. So I don't mind doing these 3-parters. I think if at most I'd like to do 2, but it's not a big deal. And honestly, I kind of like this because it does, honestly, if anything, if I'm being perfectly honest with myself, it's nice nice knowing I'll have weekly uploads for the most part. Some months I was a bit like I had to put in an extra video of whatever in between, but for the most part, it's worked out it's worked out like perfectly. So it's part 2 of 3. Now, part 3, I'm hoping to get out really soon, maybe like by next week, at best, because I just put in the requests for the next set of books that I want to come in a little bit before I go away on vacation. Reason for why that is because it's going to be the normal big stack of books, and to have to bring all those with me, I probably can't even do that, honestly. So I'm going to try to like finish as much of those as I possibly can. Maybe even get a review of them out before I go away on vacation. But that will be that. I'm trying to not say so I'm trying to get the sentence finished. But I sometimes just need to say to get my my thoughts across, get the right words out. Well, with further ado, let's get into the books. Doppelganger, my pick of the week. My pick of the stack, I should say, but pick of the week sounds a lot better. This was an absolute surprise. I knew nothing about this going in other than the title was probably going to be what the book was about, and it was not going to be misleading at all, and it is not, but it is just a thrill ride. It knows what it is, it doesn't try to be anything too special, it just tries to be a nice, entertaining 4-issue miniseries, a quick read, that, honestly, you could probably knock this out in like 2 to 3 hours, maybe even less than that. So if it takes, it takes me 20 minutes per issue, even less than that, honestly, it's like 10 minutes. So yeah, like an hour and a half. It would, if I read this all in one sitting, which I almost did, it would only take me an hour and a half to finish this entire book. And this is only, what, $9.99, right? Yeah, $10 for this, so cannot go wrong getting this book at full price. I absolutely 100% recommend it, and now Jordan Hart is going to be on my radar for his books, because he knows how to write an entertaining novel. It's not going to be an entertaining graphic novel, rather, but an entertaining piece of literature. It's no Preacher, obviously, but it's just, sometimes I want an entertaining book, and that's what this delivers. Where Starships Go to Die is the best and worst of sci-fi for me. It definitely has those sci-fi elements of just a lot of science mumbo-jumbo that people who are super into science will probably dig. But it definitely hurt the pacing of the comic for me. And I was definitely lost. But I don't mind being lost in the comic, and I was never truly bored. This is definitely, but all in all, downsides aside, it is definitely better than the Riddler. It wasn't Riddler. It was Scarecrow, Two-Face Year One that Mark Sable did with someone else. I think it was Mike W. Barr. It's someone who's known for writing Batman comics, like well known, like you associate them with Batman. It was not Chuck Dixon. It was one of I think it was Mike W. Barr. But those are both awful. The Scarecrow one I liked a little bit more, but both are just awful. And Two-Face was one of the most boring comics I'd read at the time, and still since. It was New Year's when I read it, so it wasn't that long ago. New Year's Eve, to be precise. I finished it. King's Watch, and right next to it, yes I do, and Ninjak. These are both written by Jeff Parker, and both have his highs and lows. Ninjak is definitely better paced than King's Watch is. Both of them just kind of felt like they were half-baked ideas that he just kind of, like, he has a good idea, and he puts it to paper, and it just kind of, it reads as a discounted graphic novel you'd find at your comic book store for half off. You'd buy it, read it, forget about it the next day, but you liked it enough to recommend it to a friend. Like, oh, I read this comic, I can say, see on the shelf, and you're like, oh, is this any good? And you say, yeah, you're getting it for free because I'm going to give it to you to borrow, and your friend reads it and like, yeah, if I had to spend any more money on it than half off, I would probably feel a little bit ripped off. Nothing grandiose here, nothing special, just kind of average. I'll go over them again and do an out of 10 reviews. I just realized I wasn't doing that. So you're gonna get somewhat unorganized. It's unorganized in general. I'm not doing them all at once. We're doing them in 3 parts. Godfell. If there's comics that I read for a second time and like them even more, then there should be comics I read for a second time and like them even less. And Godfell is one of them. It's not like supremely less. Like it's not like it went from a 10 out of 10 to a 2 out of 10. But it did go from like an 8 out of 10 or 9 out of 10, whatever I gave it, to a 6 out of 10. A lot of that is the excessive dialogue and especially excessive narration. Dialogue is fine, but the excessive narration. There's literally a narration that explains what's clearly being shown in the artwork, but not Christopher Cantwell, but Christopher Sabala wants to be poetic and feel like it's an actual novel, so he has to explain like it's a novel and not a graphic novel. Almost like he forgot what he was writing. But as Christopher Sabala books go, this is definitely one that I'd recommend as someone who has read not a bunch of his work, but read something like Dirtbag Rapture and thinks that that's the best that Christopher Sabala can write. It is still a good graphic novel. Just definitely could have trimmed the fat a little bit there and then made it go back up to the 9 out of 10 that I had before. Batman Gates of Gotham is one that you can probably skip. This is more of a Kyle Higgins book than a Scott Snyder Batman book, so I wouldn't even recommend reading it in like your... I still would. I would still recommend reading it in your Scott Snyder Batman reading order, especially if you read Batman Eternal, because this does follow up events. Batman Eternal, the one I'm reading right now, Volume 2, follows up on events shown here. It's just not anything, like, if you read his Court of Owls, it's not as good as that. But it does still show that he had something. I hope this was written early, I'm pretty sure it was. It was written earlier than, like, one of his first, maybe even one of his first Batman books. And if that is the case, then this is well above average. But as is, it was one that I'm kind of probably gonna forget in a little bit, like a week or 2 from now, when, like, just completely forget about it. But they even read it, and then I'll remember, oh yeah, I did read Gates of Gotham. But not a lot to say about this one, other than it wouldn't be the worst thing to skip it. Like I'm trying to more say, like, if you can only find it at full price and you only want to, that's the point. I'm stuttering. Basically, honestly, even I feel like that was a bit too harsh to say that, because I did kind of enjoy it, but it was nothing like special, is what I'm trying to say. Batgirl by Brendan Fletcher and Cameron Stewart. I found that out like years later. I've been reading this book I've read and reread this book how many times? I just realized now that Cameron Stewart was a co-writer and not the artist. I thought she was the artist, but she's just a co-writer, and actually I don't think she even does the artwork at all. Breakdown art by Cameron Stewart. Now, I read this one, and when I first read it, I thought it was awful. Second time I read it, I couldn't even get past the second trade, I think it was. I almost want to say first trade. And then I want to say this is my third time reading it. And third time is the charm. I do like this a lot more than I did the first time I read it. Not enough to where it became like something I will enjoy. It'll still for now be the reread to redeem / refresh that I coined it as being back when I showed this off. And there's a reason why I do that, is because of that reason. Because I like being like, oh, I haven't read this for the third time yet, and the first 2 times I read it, I did not like it. Will I like it the third time? Time will tell. It's a little sneak preview, or a trailer, if you will, and I like doing that because sometimes I will mention things that I'll either forget to mention this time around, or I'll remind myself, oh yeah, when I'm uploading it, like, oh yeah, I gotta mention that. And a good example is, again, like, I didn't know that Cameron Stewart co-wrote this book. I thought it was all done by Brendan Fletcher, the writing at least. But this one, it definitely did improve. I think a lot of what I said, it was remembering, hell, maybe it's later in the volumes, and a lot of it is there. There's a Batgirl, she does take a selfie in the book itself. It's not just something in the cover. There's a lot of talk of social media, apps, and everything, so it's definitely a modern take on Batgirl. And even the new 52, the most they did was have her texting on the cell phone. That was about it. And that was in the narrative. It was narratively important. And here it is too. There is a subplot about an app. It's like your Tinder dating app, and it did definitely make sense to have that in the story itself. But it just kind of felt like it was just Brendan Fletcher being like, yeah, no, your kids are on apps, so here's for that relatability factor. You guys take the apps, right? Yeah, Batgirl was using the app, and it's just kind of, it feels like he's pandering sometimes. Or it feels like he's pandering at times. Again, I will always, even though I did like it a lot more than I did the second time around, it is still to this day, I will say, it is nowhere near as good as what came before, and that is the Gail Simone Batgirl run. Transmetropolitan, like with Preacher, this is always going to be a quick review. I like this book. It's one of the most important books to read nowadays. It's politics done right in comics. It is just insanely good. And it does, and not only is it done right, but it's done in a way that's entertaining too. And that's something I think that a lot of people lose when they try to do politics in comics. Even the ones that are technically written by the people who voted for who I voted for, or for who like the main majority of people voted for, kind of thing. Even those books can be too preachy. Doesn't matter. Oh, they're talking about this president that I hate. Oh, they're talking about this president that I like. No matter what, it's gonna sound preachy. Even it could either can sound preachy, no matter what side you're on. Wonder Woman Volume 3. This is New 52, Wonder Woman, and like the first two volumes, and like I've always said about this is like, along with The Flash, I've read so many times that it's insane to think about that when I first read both of these, I was not really a huge fan of either of these characters. And now I consider myself to be big fans of these characters because of these and these alone. Yes, I've read more than that since, but to think that, like, that was it for me is insane to think about because of how good both of these runs are. Now, this is the Brian Azzarello run of Wonder Woman and the Brian Buccellato run of The Flash. See, some of these are easy to do, because I've read them so many times that, yeah, and I'm not saying, like, oh, go watch if you want a longer, in-depth review, go watch my other videos. No, it's just kind of, like, it's easy to say they're my favorite runs of these characters, and it's kind of, no offense to anyone who probably wants more, but pretty obvious as to how I feel about them. I don't think I need to say anything more, but sometimes I do feel like I do need to say more, and if I ever, like, I think what I should do eventually is do like an in-depth review of Wonder Woman. Like, but even then, I'm thinking of it right now. I'm like, I'd probably only do that of Preacher, and then maybe The Wicked and Divine. That's about it. Ant-Man, and I'm not gonna do like what Comic Historian did. I think that's his own thing. I don't want to. That's not like I'm afraid of copying him, but it's like if there's someone who already does it in a way that it's just like, it's not, first of all, not my style, and second of all, I just feel like I'd be just like emulating him. Maybe I would do if I wanted to do, like, if I was watching him for years and he unfortunately passed away last year, I wanted to do, like, a commemorative video. That's the only reason why I do it, but I was never big into Comic Historian. I understand people that were, but I'm never gonna read the comic to you guys. I'm always gonna just review it in 3 minutes or less each book. Unless, again, it's its own review in which I'll go more in depth. But that would be more just like saying, like really liked going through the artwork and just talking about the book itself, like a little bit more in depth. Honestly, I think the most I've talked about a book is probably 5 minutes. I could be wrong though. Astonishing Ant-Man, like with the first volume, I know this says volume 1, but there's an actual first volume that's Second Chances. Like that first volume, a lot of dialogue, but honestly, I can't really say where you would cut the dialogue here. You could cut the dialogue, definitely, but I can't name any specific points in this book because the book itself is still insanely entertaining. One of those books that, again, it's like most superhero comics for me, where I like it, it's entertaining, it kept my interest throughout, but it's not gonna have too much of an impact on me a month from now. I'm not gonna remember too much about it even 2 weeks from now. And that's just how superhero books are for me in general. I'm sure books like Invincible and The Boys definitely has, so far, will change that. But for the most part, I consider superhero comics to be good. I can understand why people like them, and some are really good, like Spider-Man, Death of Jean DeWolf. But it's usually the ones that try something really drastically different, or really try to be like to push the envelope, like with Kraven's Last Hunt and, like I mentioned before, Death of Jean DeWolf, both of which are Spider-Man books, and Marvels, and Daredevil Born Again, and Daredevil Man Without Fear. All these comics that really try to break new ground, and books like this are just trying to entertain. And again, books like this are just trying to entertain. I'm gonna forget about in like 2 weeks. Nothing against the book, but it's just that's how I am. And I'm not trying to say, oh, it's how every book is for me. No, it's more just like I'll forget more details from Ant-Man and well, Preacher, or even Doppelganger. I didn't want to go with Preacher. I didn't want to go with just Preacher because that's been a reread I've reread 1,000 times. Where Ant-Man's been like more like this is my second. I don't say it's my second time rereading it. Only my second. Ms. Marvel, the New Mutant, is a little better than I remember it being. I give it 3 stars on my library's catalog out of 5. I give it more, 3.5. Because 4 seems too high for this book. Perfectly serviceable. If you want another Ms. Marvel book, you want to be entertained, you didn't like certain parts of Saladin Ahmed's run, this will be exactly what you're asking for. It keeps it grounded, and it also gives you something new to add to the Ms. Marvel lore, or Ms. Marvel story rather. Captain America, Cast Away in Dimension Z. I think this is a really solid Captain American comic. I think that it breaks new ground, and it shows Rick Remender's strengths and very few of his weaknesses, if any. May's book and Stumptown almost got my picks of the week. By the skin of its teeth, Doppelganger beat both of these. But if I was getting like really specific about it, and I was saying, well, pick of the week because entertaining, then I'd pick Doppelganger. But for emotional impact, I would pick May's book. This is an absolutely insanely good graphic novel that is more than just... Honestly, I think everyone that says comic books are just for kids and just little silly funny books for kids needs to read May's book. Yeah, there's more than just May's book, but one of the most emotionally resonant comics I've read in a very long time. And enough said, honestly. And then Stumptown, just for breaking new ground, honestly. Like, getting into the true crime genre that I think... And this does it in a way that isn't... Like, it's actually entertaining. It actually feels like it's trying to be more than just, oh, we can make graphic novels into true crime and not gonna try much more. Like, it actually feels like Greg Rucka put his blood, sweat, and tears into this book. Like, every last ounce of his strength and his strengths were put into, I'm gonna say weaknesses, were put into Stumptown. Again, my pick of the week, it would have been, if not for Doppelganger. I would say this more than, so it's, if I did like a top 5, Doppelganger would be number 1, this would be number 2, and then May's book would be number 3. And honestly, number 2 and number 3 are like neck and neck. And that, I say, is that. Oh, no, it's not. I gotta go over I have 10 reviews. See, I feel like doing that, like, it's the perfect conclusion. Sometimes I just, like, I think saying 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10, it does give my overall review a nice conclusion. Because sometimes there are certain things, like, not that I forget to mention, but I'm not, like, getting my point across, like I did with Stumptown, like I stuttered there for a second, but saying 9.5 out of 10 tells you it's a really damn good book. Like, really drives that point home. 9.5 out of 10 for Doppelganger. 7 out of 10 for Starships. 6 out of 10 for both Ninjak and King's Watch. 6.5 out of 10 for Godfell. Gates of Gotham gets a 7 out of 10. Batgirl, 6 out of 10. Transmetropolitan, 8.5. Wonder Woman and The Flash both get 9s out of 10. Honestly, I would say Transmetropolitan 8.5 is a bit too low. So 9 out of 10 for Transmetropolitan, too. 7 out of 10 for Ant-Man. 7 out of 10 for Ms. Marvel. 8 out of 10 for Captain America. And 9.5 out of 10 for both May's Book and Stumptown. Oh, and so the other thing I was going to mention, kind of just going back to what I was saying before about the next pile of books. I'm trying to get them read before I go on vacation, so I probably, the way I'm going to do it, if I have to, it might not be a, here's the books I'm reading, big stack. I'll probably review some of them beforehand, so it would be a bit unorganized, but I will definitely do the books I'll be reading on vacation, while on vacation video. The one I'll upload right before I go on vacation. Actually, record before I go on vacation, upload when I'm on vacation. So, yeah, the books I'm reading well on vacation, so it still makes sense, because I'll be on vacation when I upload it. But that, as I say, is that, because I don't know anybody else when I upload that. I doubt when I'm going, we're going to go to any comic book stores, so it's a bit of a kind of high risk, bit of a judgment to ask. I don't know. Not banking on it either, so honestly, if it was somewhere where super stutter or taking a plane ride where we're going, and I think I'd rather it be like when you're in the car, you know, because I can, worst case, I can just tuck them under, put them in the bag, and tuck them under the under my seat. I can't do it on the plane because you can only have one carry-on, so better to do it when I'm on vacation. When we drive up, it's only an hour away from where we are, or whatever. It'd be a nice day trip, honestly. Because we're talking about summer vacation and where we're gonna go, and it'd be really nice to go to like a comic book store that's like an hour away or something like that. But again, that's as I say, is that because as you all know, the ones that are an hour away are the ones that are much better than the ones that are 30 minutes away. The longer you go, the better the comic book store.